Hello and welcome to another edition of On the Prowl. I'm the voice of the Cougars, Everett German, talking women's basketball today. I'm pleased to be joined by our head coach, Robin Harmony. Coach, welcome to On the Prowl.
Thanks, appreciate it. Let's see what we get into today, huh?
Well, we got to talk about women's basketball. We got to talk about you. Got to talk about your alma mater's football run. We're going to talk about it all. This is like just me and you hanging out, Coach.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, let's talk, Coach. How did Robin Harmony decide that, hey, you know what? For my career, I want to be a basketball coach?
I think as a Division I college player, I enjoyed watching my coach, Lynn Dunn, and it was just like, hey, this is pretty cool. And then when I figured out, I played a year of professional in England, and then she's the one that asked me to come back and coach as an assistant. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. So I hung up the basketball shoes, and man, that woman would give me so much work. The big yellow sheets of paper. I think there's 32 lines because I always counted them. And it would be every day. She'd come in the morning and she'd rip this off in front of me. And I just know the noise. Here's your to-do list. And it was not where we had the computers, the cell phones. This was all sitting in the office, cold calling people. I was like the do person,
Right.
But I was still the only assistant. So I got that all done. And 41 years later, I kept doing it. And that's why now I think that I'm a very good delegator, for my assistants. And, you're not a good coach unless you have great assistants and, really good players. So my guys really do a lot of work and, we get it done.
Speaking of playing, you talked about your career, Coach. Pretty heralded career there at the University of Miami down in Coral Gables. Safe to say, Coach, you got buckets. Talk about your playing days down there at the U.
Yeah, I wasn't really a shooter. My coach, after my couple games in my freshman year, she was like, I need you to score 10 points. I wish she would have said 20, because whatever you say, I'll do.
Right.
I was more of a defensive player, but, I would still get 10, 15 points, and it was really not the part that I liked. I liked delegating the pass. I liked, playing defense, getting steals. That was kind of my bag.
Is that kind of, when I look at your coaching career now and what Charleston basketball is about, you're all about that defense, Coach. I tell people when they ask about, Charleston women's basketball, I kind of use that phrase with Noah Richardson when he was at the University of Arkansas. I'm like, it's 40 minutes of hell.
Yeah.
Because you press, you run, you jump. Is that kind of the makeup of your team based on your playing style?
I think so. I think that, we try to recruit kids that can play both sides of the basketball. But when you get a kid that has that spark and really can defend, we know that if we can get them to turn it over 20 times and we can get easy buckets, we know that that's a pretty good chance that we can win that game. So, it's something that we hang our hat on. But as the years pass, you have to realize that if you don't put the ball in the basket, you can't win. So, it's a little bit 50-50 now. We're trying to recruit these two-way players. And, when you get a Taryn Barbeau who can put up a lot of buckets, that helps you win games. But, I think, I still love defense. We don't really play too much zone. So it is all about the man defense and helping and making sure somebody has your back and just causing havoc for the 40 minutes that we play. And then, that's the quarter court. So since probably a couple years into coaching, we brought in the run and jump. And, that was really Randy Snyder's baby, that he went to a clinic, learned it, and, we tweak it depending on what our kids are good at. And, that's just our staple. When you come off the bus now, we're going to press you. And we're going to make you have to work on practice 2-3 days about how our press is going to be. And it's really what the opposing coach does to their team. They tell them, hey, they're going to press you, they're going to press you, they're going to press you. So they get in each other's head before we even have a chance to press them. And then at the beginning of the game, like with North Carolina A&T, we just made them turn it over like 5 times in a row.
Right.
So that helped us with selling that press, where if it really starts to work and our kids will get easy baskets from it, they'll press. If they don't make their shot, we don't like to really play too good at defense in the full court. So it's something that has been working for us. I don't know how it would do at the Power 4 level, but for mid-major and everywhere I've been, so far it's worked.
Coach, it's interesting because when you think about the press, I think it may have been Rick Pitino that used to say this. It's not necessarily about getting steals early on.
Yep.
Teams may get a little bit. They may get a layup here or there, but it's in the third and fourth quarter when you've been pressing them all game, when that mental fatigue kind of sets in. Is that kind of the theory behind what you guys do in terms of trying to wear them down?
Absolutely. We're the team that's usually in the best shape. We're going to mentally get you the whole entire game. And then when you see that fourth quarter is when we're really turning it up to get steals. But with the timeline at 10 seconds getting it over, and then they have 20 seconds to run their offense, so they really can't run their whole entire sets. They might not have the ball in their best player's hands. So it's something that really works for us. Now, if we allow them to get a second shot and reset another 20, that's usually where we find, a little bit of trouble. But, it's this faster pace. Nobody really wants to play that style. Sometimes I look at it like, why are we even going over their offense? Because they're not running their whole entire offense. They're running a 15-second look at their offense. So it's not really what they want to do. So we get them out of sync as well.
On the men's side, basically the difference between a power forward kid and a non-power forward could be size. You could be a great guard, but hey, if he were 2 or 3 inches taller, he'd be at a power forward school. On the women's side, Coach, what determines what's a kid that is eligible to go to a South Carolina, a UConn, a big power forward school, or a kid say, hey, you know what? She can't play at that level, but she absolutely could play here at Charleston.
Yeah, I think you have to look at each individual player. It doesn't really matter about size, whether it's power four or mid-major. It's about how their heart is. Do they fit that system at a South Carolina, or do they fit our system, as a pressing team? I think that's something that you have to look at. On the men's side, yeah, that's clear because it's just makes such a big difference. But the women's side, if you look at some of the mid-majors now, they're recruiting D3 and D2 players that were All-Americans, and then they're being very successful at the D1 mid-major level. So, it's just if the kid fits you, if they're built for your system, whether they're going to be successful. And, even if you look at some of our players, could they be power four players? Absolutely. Right. But would they play 40 minutes? They might only play 20 minutes. Would they be happy doing that? So that's kind of what we try to sell. You can come to us. We can still be successful. We can, still go to the NCAA tournament. You're still going to be in the rafters. You're still going to have your stats. But if you go to a Power 4 school, maybe you might not get all those things. And I don't know. I don't think I'd be happy playing 20 minutes if I was in that situation. If I could play Power 4 and be a 20-minute kid or mid-major and be a 40-minute kid, I'm picking the 40.
Yeah. And, you think about just, while it is basketball, just the similarities, but also differences between the men's and women's game. Talking about those power forward kids, I would think, Coach, the freedom that you give your ladies to play with, there probably is somebody who wanted to, as I like to say, be on a power forward team instead of playing on a team like Charleston. I would imagine Charleston's a pretty lucrative, a nice place to visit if it doesn't work out at that top level.
Absolutely. You see those and people on those power four benches, and they don't get the minutes that they want. And then we try to recruit them. They come down here and see Charleston. They don't realize it's as nice as it is until they come on campus, come into the city. And even the ones that, every time we recruit somebody, they're, man, Coach, I didn't think it was going to be this nice. Well, we told you,
right,
but
exactly.
Until they see it with their own eyes, and especially with women, because we make choices of being things with our eyes, how it looks aesthetically. That's kind of our feeling that we choose a school with. And, do we like the coaches? Is a style that we're going to fit? And once we get them on campus, show them to the beaches and the whole entire area, it's pretty much a wrap.
Robin, you've won at every level, NAIA, smaller, you won at Lamar, obviously St. Thomas, you're winning here at Charleston. What do you think is probably the biggest reason why you've been successful at every stop in your coaching career?
I think that you have to have great players. And we have, we've recruited kids that we have no business getting at each level. Whether it was at St. Thomas, we had a kid, Cindy Castrone, who was, I think she was at Southeastern, which was Southland Conference. She went there for a year. When you're a Miami kid, you get homesick because it's not the Cuban food and, the coffees and all that. So we were lucky to get her. She came for 3 years and turned our program around. We keep getting those kind of players at each level that make the difference. Even when we were at Lamar, we had 4 or 5 kids that could play Power 4 immediately, Power 5 then. If we had those same kids on our team now, they might start over some of the kids we have. So we just got lucky recruiting. We, get relationships with AAU coaches and, get kids that we shouldn't get.
And you talk about relationships, and you mentioned women and men are obviously just different. You talked about you guys are very visual, where the men Well, it is boys. They are what they are. From a relationship standpoint, in terms of recruiting, on the men's side, unfortunately, now it seems to be more about NIL, how much money can I make, so forth and so on. Just how important are those relationships? Because you're not in that NIL world like the men are, but again, there's still kids out there that you could sell the campus thing. Just how important is that relationship to get those people
Yeah,
here?
I think it's important just to get them in the door, to get them to talk to you, because when we go in the transfer portal, some of the first questions that are being asked is how much can you pay us?
Right.
And it's on the women's side too, because
Oh,
no matter what the men do, whether it's right or wrong, we follow them. We might
gotcha.
be behind a couple years, but the Power Fours, they're right in there with what teams like our men are doing,
Gotcha.
where, you're looking at 500,000, $1 million. And, so I don't like it, but to keep up with the times, it's rev share, it's NIL money, it's, trying to give them something that they can feel like, they're not getting cheated, because what their friends are getting at the Power Four level, they want to get that here too.
Right.
And, all over mid-major. So it's changing the whole entire game, where you better have rev share money to continue to recruit, to get the better players. And if you look at our conference, some of the schools, their 2 or 3 top players, they had to get them some kind of money.
Right.
They had to, but, nobody really knows. We went to the conference meetings this summer. Everybody was trying to, figure out what everybody has.
Right.
And it'd be like, to me, I think that's like me giving you my scouting report. Why would anybody tell any of their business?
Right.
I don't tell you what I have in my bank, and I don't want to know what's in your bank.
Right.
But it's just the way it is now, where you better get up with the times. And some of the old time booster types, they don't like rev share. They don't want to give money to rev share.
Right.
So you have to figure out other ways to get the money and make it stretch, and hopefully that's enough.
What's been your key to cultivating a good culture? Because it does seem like lately with Charleston basketball, women's basketball, the culture, I just see how the girls cheer for each other. They genuinely like each other. How have you been able to cultivate that in your locker room?
Well, I think that the kids are really close together. They're knit tight. Sometimes to me too tight, but that's me as an old school kind of coach. To me it's all about, you're competing on that court.
Right.
If it's your best friend, sometimes they go to each other, hey, take it easy on me today, I'm tired. No, no, we're going to get at each other. And that's why we have 8 men that practice with us that are our practice squad. So that helps that part. And everything, before in the summer, October, everything's great until you separate the girls from the women and say, okay, here's the starters, here's the 6, 7, 8 man. And,
Right.
Then, you get the jealousy stuff that comes in. And it's really the personality of our kids, that they come from really good families. They've been brought up right. They know that, you can't be a mean person. You have to work together as a team to try to get better. You can't do it by yourself. So I think that our kids have figured that out. It does help when you win. That, if we were losing and I didn't play but 9 players, that last 5 on the bench would really be chirping loud. They
Right.
still chirp, but they don't chirp quite as loudly. And, it is tough. And it's tough to coach women, because we do things in even numbers and we get jealous easily. That's why with men, they can get in fistfights on the court and go have a beer together that night. If that happens on the women's side, they don't talk to each other for months. So it is something that you have to really keep an eye on as a coach, and make sure that everybody is happy and everybody feels like they're contributing. They know their role, whether it's a practice player, a first sub off the bench, or, but really it's all about be ready when you get your opportunity, because you never know when we're going to dial down. And, you have to have the right mindset. You have to make sure you're working, and, it's easy to give in.
Right.
Screw it. Coach doesn't like me, I'm not going to play. I look at it like, if I'm that player, I'm going to play so hard that I'm going to make you notice me, and I'm going to make you play me.
Right.
But, we got to recruit those kind of kids that want to be in that situation, because until they get to college, high school coach, AAU coach, they give them the yes, yes, yes. They never hear the word no. No,
Correct.
you can't do that. No, you can't take that shot. No, you can't. Including their parents probably don't give them too many no's. So it's a challenge when we get them to make sure that they fit our system, they mesh, They have really good family values, and they want to get the job done.
You talked about it earlier, which is now almost the norm in women's basketball. Practice players going up against guys. I know it started out years ago. I know some of the bigger schools used to do it, but I know we do it here. How did that come about, and how do you go about getting those guys to practice each and every day? Because honestly, Coach, they're part of the team.
Yep, they definitely are. The first couple years, we had a hard time finding practice guys. We could get one or two, but as our men's basketball team gets better, people want to come here. We have 70% women that go to this school, so it is harder to find more men that played basketball. So we go to intramurals and we watch them play, and pretty much recruit those guys as well. And then once we give them our spiel, you get to come to practice, you get to play every day. They love the ball, so they're like, really? I get to play, and I get to play on that main court?
Right.
We give them gear. So that's pretty much how we put our team together. And the best part of it now is we've had guys that are getting ready to graduate as seniors, and we have a new group of freshmen that actually can really play. They're better than our girls. They could play on the men's team, but they'd be, practice players for them or scout players. So for us, they still get to have their freedom. They use eligibility doing it as well, but it's a matter of they love playing, they love helping. They're good guys. They only have like 2 rules. They can't dunk on us, and they can't pin the ball against the backboard on us. But they're faster than us. They're quicker than us. They're stronger. So that makes us ready to play our opponents. Sometimes I think they take it too easy on us, which, we have to have little conversations with them now and again. We need you to bump them. We need you to bump them and do things like that. But, once they get it done, they really do make us better.
Coach, what's the one big misnomer about women's basketball?
Well, people think that women can't play, or, they're not good enough. You get these certain guys to say, oh, they suck. Well, come play them one-on-one, and let's see. Let's have 5 of your best and 5 of us, and I bet you we can compete with you.
Right.
It's just really selling that they can play. It is below the rim. It's more of a team sport. It's prettier to watch because we have to use each other, pass the ball, defense. It's not just one-on-one. It's not ball screen and roll and just 2 guys like it is a lot in the pros and a lot of the men's game. But once we can get them to come watch one time, they're going to get hooked. And we've been hooking fans like that would say, nah, women can't play. Oh, they're just girls. No, they're athletes. They're basketball players. They're not men or women once they're on the court. They're basketball players.
Yeah, it's funny, Coach. I was listening to a national radio show, and a caller called in and legit said, Coach, that a high school basketball team, he said, pick any high school basketball, and he was actually it was a local show here in Charleston, could beat the Las Vegas Aces.
Oh boy.
And the WNBA. So I'm like, so wait, you mean Asia Wilson? They're like, yes, because there's just that misnomer that women just can't beat men. And somebody who I kind of feel like I know a little bit about basketball, I think they'd be hard pressed to the Aces or any WNBA team, Coach. Come on.
I think you have to consider the source there and why even worry about that guy, because he doesn't have a clue. And even for us to really compete against our 8 practice guys, we have to bring it and play tough, the whole entire practice against them, because they're good. They just are.
All right, so Coach, let's talk about you. Do you have a game day routine, like before the game, a certain thing you just like to do before the game that kind of gets you ready for that matchup?
Well, I'm pretty superstitious. If it's a home game, I'm in my office. Randy usually comes in 30 minutes before with his Red Bull. He could be a Red Bull sponsor. And he drinks that. He gives it to me to throw away. It's kind of our tradition, home games. But, we wear pretty much the same thing.
Right.
Just because we don't want to change up anything. We don't want it to be our fault.
Right.
If something goes wrong, I didn't like wearing that other shirt that we wore against NCAT because that's not what we always wear. But it was the 50th anniversary and we did it, and the shirt's big on me on the collar and I'm just pulling at it all the time. But it's just a routine that we pretty much do the same thing over and over. As a player, I used to always wear the same socks, the same bra, the same underwear.
Right.
And after a couple of years, that gets a little ratty, but that's just, that's just what we get used to.
It's worn in.
On road trips, we always have Olive Garden as pregame meal.
Okay.
We eat 4 hours before the game. It's just little things like that that we try to do to stay consistent, that it doesn't blow anybody's mind. Everybody knows what to expect. We get to the gym usually 2 hours before. We don't want to be rushing around, or if something does happen, we have time to come back to the hotel. It's some of the things that I don't really change.
Right.
I've changed a lot of things about coaching, as being an old school coach, to, all right, you can play music, you can do this, you can do that. But, certain things on game day, that's where you got to stay locked in. You have to make sure you do the same routine. Something that would never bother me on any other day.
Right.
If they bring that up to me on game day, I'm like, really, you're bringing this to me on game day? But once you've been with the staff long enough, they know, like, don't bother coach on right.
Right.
Because that little issue that normally she'd just, let it fall off my back, and it becomes something. You might get shoot out or something on game day that you wouldn't get shoot out any other time. But, it's just get ready to play. As a coach, you feel like we have already done our work. The hay is in the barn,
Right.
and it's up to the kids. Are they going to show up? Are they going to perform? And that's what's been nice about this year, is we've been consistent and we know what we're getting.
Right.
Other years, we'd flip a coin. We're getting an A team or we're getting a B team today.
Right.
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 Thank God the A team has been staying around, and it's just, you just sort of hope and pray. And that first basket, if you ever look at me, I'm always holding my breath.
Now, speaking of music, if Robin Harmony is in control of the aux, like, you get to play the music, hey girls, today I got this, I'm going to play the music for us, whether it's during stretching or practice or whatever, what is Robin Harmony putting on for
Well,
the
they would
ladies
hate
listening?
it. They would hate it. It would either be a country music or it'd be 80s, stuff that just easy listening. It wouldn't be anything that would juice them up. But little they know that some of those songs they're listening to now, they've been revived to being, what we used to listen to.
Right, exactly.
But, I don't even know what their music is anymore, because I have Siri Radio. I keep it on, one channel, The Blend, and I don't even
Right.
really jump off because I cannot stand listening to commercials. So
There you
that's
go.
just me. But, they would not be very happy with the music choice.
I understand. One thing that I know you're happy about, Coach, and I'm going to sing your praises, is, Coach, you're looking great. Like, you've done a great job working out, losing LBs.
Yeah.
Like, kind of tell people about the new Robin Harmony that's moving quicker, out there
Yeah.
demonstrating drill. Are you taking charges and demonstrating drills yet? Or-
Unfortunately, Marissa Brown knows about me taking a charge, because we had camp one day and we had the baskets low. She goes, Coach, can I dunk on you? I'm like, all right, but you're not going to hit me, right?
Right.
No, Coach, I'm going to dunk over you now. She didn't. I took the charge nice on her. But it's, I am a junk food eater. I love sweets. I love cakes and cookies and the tasty cakes. And I'm from Hershey, Pennsylvania. So, I kind of grew up on chocolate.
Right.
So I just one day decided I'm going to stop eating sweets. Now, I still eat them, but I don't eat 4 a day.
Right,
I
okay.
eat like 1 or 2 a week. And if I eat it, I savor it,
Right.
because I just love, I'm not a bad eater otherwise. It's just those candies and cookies and all that stuff that I had to take out of my diet. And I just did it.
Well, we like to see you're looking great, Coach. So
Thanks.
I was at one of the games earlier this year, and I'm like, man, Robin's like almost half of herself, and you can yell and you can work the officials a lot easier, Coach, because
Yeah.
you can just stay up and give them the business when they're making those, what we like to call un-College of Charleston like calls, which
Yeah.
I've seen some games, Coach, where I've say, hey, this would probably be a good spot for Robin to get a technical foul.
Yeah, I know. But, to me, officials are like cops. They pull you over. Hey, let me see your registration. Let me see this. You don't have it, or you give them an attitude, they add on tickets.
True.
So I have that same fear about officials. I'm trying to be different with them, where I just talk to them and, yeah, but you called that in the other end, just to try to find a new way. Because yelling at them and doing all that stuff, I don't know if it really helps. So I just, try to get my message into them a different way. I don't want to really get to that point where I get a T, because I don't know if I could pull myself back. I have thank God they don't do that very often to me, but if the official tells me to relax,
Right.
that's my neck.
Trigger.
Like, no, you're not going to tell me to relax. What? Then I might go there.
Right.
But I try not to, because I feel like if I get crazy, my team is going to get that way.
Right.
So I'm trying to stay extra calm, because whatever it is, it'll pass. We can get through it. And so far, it's been working this year. And, we are staying calm. We don't lose it. We don't, think, oh, that's it. They're down. They're going to go away. In the past, we were that team that if we got down too far, really come back. Now we get down, we're coming back.
Coach, a couple more just because I want to talk to you about what's now just prevalent in college athletics, and that's NIL and transfer portal. You hear about it in college football a lot. You hear about it in college basketball on the men's side. Kind of give us like a snippet, a snapshot of what does it look like on the women's side in terms of not necessarily tampering, but the transfer portal and how you have to navigate that. And then, like you say, you touched on a little bit earlier about the whole NIL, but just being able to configure that into what we're trying to do here at Charleston.
Well, I'm still going to try to recruit freshmen. Now, there's some coaches that they're just going to go in the portal and they're going to live in the portal.
Right.
But to me, you get a portal kid. Are they long in the tooth? Are they injured? You get them for 1 year. If we have a system like ours where, we're teaching the run and jump and we're teaching a different type of man than they've really ever done before, it takes a year to learn it. And it takes a while for that light to go off. So, we're going to go in that transfer portal and try to get some kids. But, even players on your team, I lost 2 players last year that I was floored when they told me they were going to transfer. One was a starter, and one was a starter sometimes, and one was a 6-man playing, 25 minutes. The other one was playing almost 40 minutes. But, it's all about that dollar. They're going to chase the green, and they think the grass is greener. For one, it was that transferred. The other one, it wasn't. That one plays now. The one that it wasn't greener, she plays like 7-8 minutes a game. You can't be happy doing that.
Right.
The other one went for money, and I don't know. I guess if that's what's important to them, that's what they're going to go to.
Right.
For me, it's about a relationship. It's about I'm happy here. It's beautiful. I play. I'm contributing. I'm helping my team win. But everybody's built different. You don't know what's going to trigger somebody to say, I'll go in the portal. But I'm still going to recruit some young kids, try to keep them for 4 years, and go and get the special players in the portal like we did with Grace and Taja, which nobody really knows her by Taja as Beans.
Right.
Those 2 players are in our starting lineup, and they came from the portal.
Well, safe to say Robin Harmony has done a fantastic job with this women's basketball program here at the College of Charleston. We've never been in such solid position under her leadership. Coach, you're just killing it. Looking forward to just bigger and better. And of course, if somebody wants to, give Robin some money to go, get, like, I think that Lauren Betts kid, like, I'm sure she'd probably love to come on the East Coast. I mean, she'd be nice here in Charleston, wouldn't she?
A lot of players would be really nice here in Charleston. It's just about going out and fundraising and trying to get money in our program that's going to make a difference, of pulling in more players.
Yeah, so that's what we need to do to make sure we keep Coach Harmony and her staff and the girls just a ton of fun to watch, to be around. Like I said, we're in good hands here at Charleston. So, Coach, thanks for joining me here on the podcast, and I'm sure we'll have you back because this was fun, Coach. We didn't get to talk about snow crabs. We didn't get to talk about your football team.
Oh boy,
1 game away, Coach.
I know, but at least we got there. At least we got there, and it's been a long time since we fixed Miami football.
Right.
And it's just luck. It was luck.
It was.
I would like to have had that quarterback, and that if you hear that story, you can't even really believe it. He wanted to walk on. He told him no. He transferred to Indiana. He still wanted to come back to us. We told him no. We picked back instead. I guess we made that wrong choice there, but
you just never know. That's the beauty of recruiting.
But he's going to probably go on and be a great pro player too, just because he has that mentality of working hard and winning. He's a winner.
Well, the one thing we do know, this lady is a winner as well, and we're so happy to have her here at Charleston. Thanks for watching this episode of On the Prowl, and we'll see you next time.